Hey, it's Chris Allingham with the Virtual Weber Bullet. It's raining today here in Northern California. This is the first significant rain we've had in probably 11 months or so. I'm recording this at the end of January 2021. We haven't had much rain here in Northern California, so this is a very welcome development, but it is not exactly great weather for Smoky Mountain Cooker usage. I know this is probably nothing for some of you depending on where you live, but for me, I'm more of a fair weather cooker. In a day like today with the wind and the rain, it's not a day that I'm going to be cracking out my Smoky Mountain Cooker. It's going to sit over here under its cover until the rain stops and the wind subsides and the sun comes out and things are a little bit fairer here in the backyard. That does not mean that we can't talk about the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker. And I have a quick tip I want to share with you, especially for new Smoky Mountain Cooker owners, having to do with what I call the burn zone inside the Smoky Mountain Cooker. Let's go in the house and I'll show you some pictures and tell you all about it. So what is the burn zone in the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker? Well, it's this area at the outside edge of the cooking grate where food tends to burn. Now, why does that happen? Well, let's take a look at this picture of a 14-inch Smoky Mountain Cooker. You can see the water pan is in place, and there's a gap around the outside edge of the water pan where the heat comes up from the fire down below. Let's go ahead and color that area red, just so we can visualize it better. This is the place in the cooker that is really hot because the fire's down below, heat's flowing up around the water pan through that gap in order to cook the food up above. But what that means is anything that's in that gap is going to get really, really hot and overcooked. Let's put the bottom cooking grate in place, and you can see that for the 14-inch cooker, there's an overlap of about 1 inch or 1.5 inches where the grate goes into this really hot zone. So that means that any meat that overhangs into that area is going to get overcooked. And if you put a temperature probe in that area, like an air probe, you're going to get a reading that is way too high compared to if you put that probe in the middle of the cooking grate. So when it comes to the bottom cooking grate, whether it's the 14-inch or the 18-inch or the 22-inch cooker, you want to keep your meat inside the circumference of the water pan if you can, and you want to keep your air probes also inside that circumference as well, because if you place it at the edge, you're going to get a temperature that's way too high. Now, what about the top cooking grate? Well, there is still some of this effect at the top, but it is not quite as pronounced because there's a difference of several inches between the top and bottom grates. The air has a chance to mix more. It's more diffused by the time that heat comes up to the top cooking grate. I have noticed, though, that things that tend to encroach toward the very edge of the top grate, they do cook a bit more than meat that's in the middle. So once again, if possible, you want to try to keep your meat within the edges of that top cooking grate. Don't get it too far out to the edge if possible. And once again, keep your air probe, if you're using one, away from the outside edge of the grate. You'll get a more accurate temperature that way. So to illustrate the hot zone even more graphically, let's take a look at some pictures I took when I was running my Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker. At 350 degrees Fahrenheit, I lit a chimney starter full of Kingsford briquettes and dumped them into the charcoal chamber. I don't have any food in the cooker. And here's a picture I took of the outside of the cooker using a FLIR infrared attachment for my iPhone. And you can see that the cooker is very white hot near the bottom. That's the hottest part. And then the purple areas are the cooler areas. Let's take a look inside the cooker. You can see here that I've got the water pan in place, wrapped in foil with no water. And you can see that although the bottom of the pan is kind of a mid-orange color, the areas around the foil, which is the purple circle, is very bright, almost white. And that's the heat coming up around the water pan. In this next photo, I've added water to the pan. That makes the pan purple. And now you really get a sense of how the heat is coming up around the water pan. The water pan's purple, the cooler water is deep purple, the heat coming up around the pan is a bright yellow, and then the orange and reddish colors radiating out from that are the inside surface of the middle cooking section. So these pictures really illustrate quite clearly how the heat is coming up around that water pan and why you want to keep your meat out of the burn zone. Two last points. Number one, it doesn't matter whether you have water in the pan or you're cooking with an empty water pan. It's just the fact that the pan is in the cooker that's what creates this burn zone area on the bottom cooking grate. So keep that in mind. Doesn't matter whether you got water or a dry pan. It's always going to happen if the water pan's in place. Second point is that if it's one of the few occasions where you're not cooking with the water pan, you've taken it out, for example, to do the high heat chicken recipe that we have on the Virtual Weber Bullet website, well, then you don't have this phenomenon because it's created by the presence of the water pan and the way the heat flows up around that pan. So no water pan in the cooker, you don't have a burn zone. Well, that wraps up my quick tip on how to avoid the burn zone in the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker. I hope you find this information useful, especially if you're a new cooker owner. I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate you very much. If you could please like and subscribe to my videos, it helps other people find them. Until next time, take care, stay dry. Bye-bye, everybody.